Hello Internet! Welcome back to Mutton Shop Gaming. I'm the Mutton Shop Gamer, and did you really expect me to go through Spooky Month and not have at least one survival horror game on here? And by survival horror, I mean you're actually trying to survive. You don't get to kill any of the monsters. So I decided to play one of the mainstream games that actually pioneered that idea, Silent Hill Shattered Memories. Now, I didn't play the Japanese Silent Hill games. I still haven't actually beaten them. I've dabbled in them, but haven't actually beaten them. So, this is actually the first Silent Hill game I've ever beaten. Is it scary? Or is it a piece of crap? I don't know, let's find out. You play as Harry Mason, a man who just got into a car crash and his daughter is missing. You begin to explore Silent Hill, the town where you live, in search of her in the middle of a snowstorm. This storm has caused most businesses and events to be cancelled, with few people ever leaving their homes. As the game progresses, you find out that Harry may have had some problems from the crash, as he discovers that he has forgotten more recent memories. As he searches Silent Hill for
Cheryl?
Mario!
Jason!
the town becomes twisted, dark, and frozen, as monsters hunt you down and tackle you to keep you from progressing as you go deeper and deeper into the Middle American town. Now, I've never played the first Silent Hill game, but the story is pretty good. It reshapes itself in the characters based on the choices you make, but I can't help but feel that these alternate designs don't exactly make the game scarier. Maybe if everybody hated you, that could be a cool idea, or if you were sure that Harry was seeing was real, but everyone else was crazy from the start, it would be fine. But Harry, from the first few cutscenes, just seems a bit out of it. The story is broken up by a psychologist talking to you and asking questions. Because technically you're not actually playing as Harry Mason, you're playing as a silent person in Silent Hill telling the psychologist to this little story. This ties into the whole psychological profiling thing the game claims that it does. The game's characters, locations, and monsters change based on how you answer the psychologist's questions and how you behave in Silent Hill. For example, if you look at the sexy pictures in the game too long, you get the pervy ending and the monsters become more feminine. Now, that's a cool idea on paper, but apparently the people at Climax assumed that Harry Mason was not an interesting character that could immerse us. See, if we can be immersed in the story of the game, it's like we're actually the main character. It's like in the Neverending Story, how the shopkeeper guy says how when people get immersed in books, they become the main character. The same thing applies to video games because you actually make the movements yourself. My point is that psychologically profiling you sounds like a scary idea, but it amounts to little more than a few changes because the game still flows in the same direction. Whereas immersing us and making us feel like the protagonist would have made the monsters that go against him become the monsters that go against us. The visuals of the game, although they still kind of hold up because they're highly stylized, they hurt my eyes after a while. Maybe it's because I had to strain them in order to look at all the details, but still. I know horror games need to incorporate style for spooks and realism for immersion, but I find the text rather small. Maybe it's just me, I don't know. The world design is well done, if a bit dated. Was gasoline ever this cheap? Hey, Contra! Maybe I should do that on an episode sometime. The monsters, or Rorschachs, oh ha ha ha, they're named after Herman Rorschach, inventor of the ink blot test. They have different designs based on what kind of ending you're leading up to. They seem to fit well, from sexy because Harry is a womanizer to being diseased because he's a drunk. But what does the abstraction have to do with being a good father and just trying to find your daughter? I get that the more contemporary Silent Hill games have been making the multiple endings less about how people deal with the sin, and more about what sin they committed, but how does abstract art style say that Harry was a good father to his child? What, did he feel guilty about dragging her to an art gallery once? Other character designs work well, and of course they all change based on your psychological answers. They're not exactly fleshed out, nor do they have character arcs, but they serve to move Harry's story along just as well. The world design, however, doesn't exactly help with making the town creepy. See, unless you're in the Nightmare world, you'll always be safe. But that doesn't mean the designers couldn't try to use atmosphere to make the regular town of Silent Hill creepier. Personally, I'd have made the regular world only playable at night. Some soft, spooky piano music as you explore the town at night would have helped with the tone of the game. But then they have these sections in broad daylight, and they're not really as scary because the game is so bright. Some argue that the Nightmare world should not have been blue because blue is a calming color, but you know what? I don't agree with that. It's not that red is a danger color, nor that red is a food color, but blue because it's a frozen landscape, and you're all alone with monsters out to find you. Think about it, if you are out in the woods alone at night in winter with creatures out to get you, yeah, that would be scary because if the monsters don't get you, the hypothermia will. Too bad hypothermia wasn't a game mechanic. The Nightmare sections have great atmosphere to them, and while the town in the daytime without everything frozen could be considered pacing to ease tension, the psychology room sessions do that well enough. Sound design works well to try to bring you in with not much to talk about them. The music, though, is fantastic. Seriously, the piano tracks are some of the best I've heard. I believe that if you want to make Middle America scary, set it at night with some creepy piano tunes playing. It's a nice, subtle way to make things spooky. Other music fits in the game well, but they're not exactly memorable, although they do build atmosphere, so I'm just gonna call it acceptable. Animation, on the other hand, has some hiccups. I like how the loading screens are hidden behind locked doors. I don't like how the doors stutter. It's also worth noting that when running for monsters you can clip through the doors, but still doing the bursting through animation. Also, why is it that the doors close behind you when you burst through them? There is no way every door in Silent Hill has a closing mechanism on them. Are the monsters all like, "This guy just opened a door and didn't close it? How rude!" and close it themselves? Something else I have to mention is how Harry's health and monster sensing are displayed. As Harry gets injured, he begins to limp around, which is cool, but when monsters are near, the screen gets staticky. Now, maybe it's just because I grew up with both CRT and digital TVs, but that static thing wasn't exactly thinking forward. I doubt future generations who go back to play this game will know what static was for old TVs and VHS tapes, so it may make the game more dated in the future. Heck, it came out in 2009. I'm guessing some developer thought it would be a cool idea and the others agreed, not realizing that perhaps digital glitches would be better, like the digital glitches in Arkham Asylum in the last Scarecrow mission. The gameplay is an over-the-shoulder style adventure game in the real world and a running and hiding game in the Nightmare world. In both worlds, you solve puzzles to make progress, and these puzzles are usually solved in one room. So you don't have to search all over a high school to go through a door, you're just finding the information in one room, and I actually like that kind of gameplay. You solve puzzles with motion controls, and I'm fine with them. I just wish that picking up and setting down objects was a little bit easier. You can't fight the monsters, you can only run, and while this adds tension, the monsters don't do much when they get you. They just give you a hug and you have to throw them off. The Wii Remote, however, has trouble figuring out which direction you're trying to throw them off a lot of the time, even with Wii Motion Plus. But it's okay, if they end up taking you down, you'll just get back up at a checkpoint with no damage and all the flares reset. See, the flares actually repel monsters because apparently they hate light. You can also hide from the monsters or throw down objects that get in their way to slow them down while you run. Harry also has a cell phone which can get audio logs in the form of messages, notes in the form of texts, he can make phone calls to people, use the GPS map on the phone to find his way around and draw on it to make a path, and he can take pictures of ghosts. But why does the save icon have to be on the phone? There was a point in the game where I forgot that the save was on the phone menu, so I went to the pause menu to find the save icon with no luck. I figured that it must have autosaved, but then it sent me all the way back to an earlier part of the game. I got the puckish rogue to get me back to that point, but that's no excuse for not having an autosave. Some might say, oh well, you should have saved earlier. Counterpoint, if you die, it's not a game over, it's a slap on the wrist. I felt no need to save because there was no pressure, I just wanted to take a break after I did another psychology section. So, maybe it's partly my fault, but because autosaving was a thing in those days, there there is no real excuse for the designers to not put the saving functions where they belong. It seems like they wanted to make this game all modern stuff with the cell phone and everything, going as far as to make the phone conversations come from the Wiimote by default. But with the static and everything else, I just feel that the game seems dated now, and it's only going to get worse as time goes on.
I think I'm gonna have to give this game a C-. Yes, it does some stuff very well, but at the end of the day, the scares in the game are just campy. And for a game that claims to psychologically profile you, to terrorize you to your subconscious, that's a very significant problem that I just can't overlook. Alright, that's it for now, and I'll see you all next week when we finish Spooky Month.